Welcome back. Boy, does that feel good to say. After many months, we've launched the podcast in the last week. You're hearing this second episode 1 week from the first episode. Normally, we're going to release shows every 2 weeks, but as the first episode was so short and I didn't really get to introduce myself all that much, I didn't want to get that far down the road and that deep into our conversations before kind of letting you get to know me a little bit better. And then I cannot wait to get to know you back in our community. If y'all didn't hear on the last episode, we have a Facebook community. It's called If Not For This Podcast Community. And that space and that group, there are already so many wonderful people in there waiting to meet you guys and waiting to have these wonderful conversations. And I just welcome you and encourage you to meet us over there so that we can actually interact. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening to the first episode. This has been an act of love for me, and it's been really important to me that you feel welcome here and that you feel loved here. And the first episode definitely taught me a lot about myself. I am working with the most brilliant team in the land, and our dear friend that is over the video editing gave me such a nice fright in my nice close zoom of my clips on all of our socials. And when I saw them, I'm immediately going, my eyebrows, my eyeshadow. I don't even own silver eyeshadow. Why do my eyes look like that? And I'm just picking myself apart. Thank goodness in inner thoughts internally, because my son was right next to me, and I don't even know why I asked him, because it's so not like me to even I don't really let my children in on any of my self-image stuff. I try to be really positive with them. But either way, I showed the clip to him and I said, hey, is this off-putting to you? Would you turn this off if you didn't know who I was? And he, without skipping a beat, he's 12, he said, well, that lighting is just not doing you any favors here, here, and here. And he pointed to my forehead and my cheeks. And I just thought, A, he didn't say anything about my eyebrows. And B, if Carissa, someone completely brilliant, went to that tight zoom and went, money, that's a money shot. If she looked at my close face and said, they're going to love this, I'm going to go with her. I'm going to choose to piggyback off of her opinion instead of the one that was in my head, because it would terrify you. Speaking of eyebrows, after that first revelation, we'll call it, I went straight to the store to do some work. I pray that you guys are pleased with the improvement. I bought a little bit of color and one of the spoolies, the little brush that works on your eyebrows. And even if none of you noticed them, I noticed them. And so as I was getting ready for the episode today, my head was like, oh, shoot, I have not seen that spoolie. I bet it got thrown away. That was my first thought. So I run into the kitchen when I had gotten here with all of the groceries. All of the kids were here, and we always have boyfriends and girlfriends over, and everyone just kind of ascends on my car and grabs all the groceries and gets them in, and we're all having it's almost like a little Brady Bunch routine that I'm absolutely in love with, and they just get them in, and we're all talking and joking and laughing, and dogs are everywhere. And they're putting all the groceries up. But either way, in that process, stuff does get thrown away. It's kind of a normal occurrence. If it's a lighter or a birthday candle or, it's just gotten tossed. So I knew immediately what had happened. So I go to the kitchen. I'm looking at all of the grocery sacks where we keep those. I'm condensing them down to a fist because a spoolie can't go to a fist. And I'm not finding anything. So I go through the 8 or 9 bags down there. And so then I have to go to the trash. And I'm like, gosh, our trash is so gross. We have ice cream kids. We have a bunch of kids, like I said. And I'm just trying to delicately pick through the trash. This is my life. I'm going through trash. and I can't find any Kroger sacks, and I'm looking. So then I have to go to the older trash, which is Super Bowl trash, and you know how disgusting Super Bowl trash is. And I'm going through it, and just no luck. I'm not finding it. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? I just wanted something nice for this. I wanted something nice for you guys, and myself, of course. And my head goes, hey, like this is a appropriate time for this next sentence. You put that spoolie in your purse so that it wouldn't get thrown away. It's out in the truck in your purse. And I was like, thanks a lot on the timing of that information. And so I go outside my purse and I grab a spoolie and I'm just like, why can't I have one of those fancy brains that when I go to look for the spoolie, my head says it's in your purse. That's where you should be looking, in your purse. But no, I have to go through this whole entire song and dance. And for what? I have no extra time. So why is it like, hey, you know what would be good? Let's spend some time on something that's not going to matter whatsoever. I just really kind of am jealous of people that have a brain that works in the right order instead of one of those. Whenever I was thinking of what I wanted to talk to you guys about in one of these first intro episodes, of course, I want to tell you where I'm from and how I got here, but I feel like what's something more interesting is just stories that have defined, maybe one of the bigger stories that have defined my life, where I go from telling you about a spoolie to telling you about one of the bigger moments. And so I thought, what would be a good one? You know, there's several we could go over, but I just thought, what would be like a good one to kind of lead you into the door that is my life? And up comes this memory. It's one of the biggest moments that kind of tried to take over my life for a while. And of course, I'm like, we're gonna open with that one. And I think I have one of those minds that's like, go big or go home and figure out if they're gonna stick around. And I'm like, well, don't you want to like get them snacks and let them know a few other things that they would love about you so that it would ease the heaviness of this next one? No? Okay. And so tell them that one. Tell them that one. And so it's like, all right. And so whenever we got divorced, my first husband and I, everything tries to lead back to that stinky divorce, especially in talking about struggles and valleys and pits and ditches. Everything goes back to those years. And with mine, not only did I find myself in the bottom of the pit, you know, in the first episode, I was telling you guys that when I came out of that pit, I knew that I would go for rope and I would come help anyone else that was down there. And so in looking back at coming out of that pit, it's not always celebrations of, look at you, look where you came out of, look at you coming out of that pit. For a while, there was shame and embarrassment, and a type of shame that could be crippling at times, and where my inner mean girl would go would be straight to, not only were you at the bottom of that pit, you were at the bottom of that pit as a mother. So where these children are looking to you to protect them and play with them and keep them fed with mac and cheese and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and you know, you're in the bottom of a pit and you don't even know your name. And so shame can sit there with me. And so one of these memories that I have, you know, I feel like we all have them. My first husband had brought our girls to school, and I had seeped into just a depression and a despair, and was seemingly just not really present. I feel like I came unhinged and I came undone, and I wasn't really even somebody that resembled myself. And in that depression and in that desperation, I had taken to the bed one day, and our youngest was still at home. He had been watching cartoons on the couch, and he came to my bedroom door, and he was knocking on our door and calling for Mama. And so, of course, I went out and got him, and we went and sat, or maybe I brought him back to the bed, or we went and sat on the couch. But for years and years and years, just this tiny little moment just landed wrong within me, just sat wrong within me. And for years and years and years, anytime I would experience any type of success or joy or forward motion, my head would go, do you remember Cash knocking on that door? You remember Cash knocking on that door? You know, the girls would win a basketball game, and I would be so happy, and my head would go, do you remember him knocking on that door? Was he saying Mama? And of course, I went right to the door and I got him, but there was just something about him having to knock on the door to get to me. My head would say, you weren't on a walk with him. You weren't sitting with him, teaching him his ABCs. You weren't doing those things that a plugged-in mother needs to be doing. He had to come to your room and get you out of your bed. And it haunted me. It haunted me for years, y'all. I mean, we're 10 years out, and the healing and restoration that I've experienced with this memory is recent, like new. So I went to a therapist, and for this specific memory that was trying to take all of my good moments, you know, I'd roll from the left side to my right side at 2:30 in the morning, and my head would go, was that Cash knocking on your door? Just terrorized me. So I went to the therapist, and she was wonderful, and we met for several sessions before I even decided I was wanting to bring it up. And I didn't tell her what it was. I just told her what it was doing to me. And she saw my body language, and she saw my tears and my shaky hands and my shaky voice, and she said, Jess, I'm just going to let you know that you're not ready. I know you think you're ready, and I know you're desperate to offload this, but you're not ready. She said, so what we're going to do is we're going to put it in this beautiful box, and we're going to let it know that, hey, we care. We're not dismissing it. We're going to come back to you when we're ready, and we're ready to work through it, but that's not right now. And we're going to just put that box away, know that it's there, and we'll do this some of the time. She said, we can do it if you want to, but I'm going to let you know that I'm feeling like you're just not ready. And two things about that. One, I was frustrated with her. I was just like, I've came to you to get help with this, and you're putting me off, just like it seems like everyone else puts me off and doesn't get the severity of what I'm trying to express. And I came to her just to get rid of that one. I couldn't sit with it any longer. I was so tired. You know, it'd been nearly 10 years that I've sat with this little terrorizing chokehold that had me by the throat. And I was like, I'm ready for anything. I'm ready for anything you're willing to try. You do shock my brain and take this memory. I do not want it any longer. And two, vulnerably, I will tell you that placing it in that box, it did alleviate some of that pain. It didn't take away how often it would come up, but it didn't take away the effect, the negative effect that it had on me yet. So about 5 or 6 months later, we're driving down the road. My son, Cash, the main character of this here story, this here memory, he's now 12, always has been the most wonderful little boy, thriving. And, you know, I would try to use that as stop terrorizing yourself. Your son's perfect. Like, he's wonderful. We're okay. He was 2. He does not remember knocking on that door. I don't know why it has landed here. This has gotten ridiculous. You are wasting too much of your life on this minute, this little moment. But either way, we're going down the road, and he says, he thought of some memory, and he said, Mom, in Dad's apartment, and he tells me something, and I just went, what'd you say? And he said, in Dad's apartment. And I just went, gosh, that wasn't Dad's apartment. Mom lived there. Like, that was our apartment. It was me and his dad's and sisters. We all lived there for a couple of years. And I said, do you not know that Mom lived there? And he said, what? No, you did you? And I said, yes. And he's like, huh, and just went on the rest of the story. And we drove home, and I came in my room, and I just accepted that healing from the person that I was so sorry to most, that I could not go back and change the past. I knew how silly it was that tiny little moment had me by the chokehold, but the way my head would define it and define me as a mom by it, however incorrectly, it had eaten my lunch, you guys. And in that little tiny moment, he just took it. He just took it away. The very place that memory was set. He doesn't even know that I've been in that space. And if he doesn't even have me set in that space, why do I have to? Why do I have to put myself there over and over and over? And I just thought, how neat is it that I went to the therapist to give me healing on this. And God said, I've got something coming that is going to really wow you. And wow me he did with my 12-year-old little boy that I'm already so wowed by. Could help me redefine something about me that had defined me incorrectly. And I thought, I'd like to tell you guys that story because I feel like we all have these little moments that land and set incorrectly within our system, and how God can use these connections between us to heal those things in us. And I'm thankful that that's something I was able to experience and something that He does in us. Back to the details, because I do love them, and I hope they are as interesting. But I am from Louisiana. I am from the dirty South, and I think that does kind of help to connect some dots or some questions that you may have thus far. I was born near or just on a suburb of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in a town called Central. I went to Central High School. My entire family is still there. My nieces and nephews, they started being, I'm the youngest of 4, superhero set of siblings. They are my superpower. There are 4 of us, 2 older sisters and an older brother, and they are all married. So I have 2 brother-in-laws and a sister-in-law, and then they all have children. And those children, as I'm the youngest, started coming to our world when I was 11 and 13. The first 2 were born. Those nieces and nephews of mine are the light of my entire life. And they did start branching out from Baton Rouge, but my immediate family is still there. And so we try to get there as much as we can. When I was 8, I started playing basketball, travel ball, rec, school. I went to a little K through 12th for middle school, and they gave me the opportunity to play high school ball in 7th and 8th grade. And that was really good for me because when I did go to my high school, I already had varsity experience, and I just fell in love with the game. And if a coach said, I want you to work on this, I would go home and work on that. Speaking of home, we kind of had the best of both worlds. I was given the most amazing childhood in the fact that it was a different time, so we kind of just disappeared for 5-6 hours at a time. We didn't have cell phones. I never really knew where we were, but we were safe, and we always made it home after some good decisions, or maybe not some. But we lived in a neighborhood, and so I had all of our wonderful neighbors. The kids could ride our bikes down the street and stuff, but we had 10 acres so we also had horses and three-wheelers. Jay was laughing at the lack of wheels on my three-wheeler in the story I was telling the other night, but yeah, we didn't have four-wheelers yet. It just wasn't time yet. Everyone on our side of the street had that 10 acres, and we were all real close. And so everyone had their gates to the neighboring properties open. So I could get on my horse and ride 4 properties over and never feel odd that I was on someone's property or feel like I was trespassing. Everyone was welcome. We all had just kind of a nice communication like that. And I had a dream of a childhood. Played basketball most of the time. I was either outside on my horse, outside running around the fields with the dogs, outside playing basketball, or inside playing basketball. And so I played all through high school. When it was time to go to college, I went to a small school in East Texas called East Texas Baptist University. That is where I met my first husband and played basketball there for a couple years before getting homesick for that family I told you about a second ago, and rightly so. I should have known that I wasn't going to be able to leave them for very long. I came back to LSU for several semesters, and boy, did that save a lot of money and made some wonderful memories there. And then eventually started dating my first husband and moved back to graduate with him. We walked the stage on the same day in a day in December of 2002. And then in February, 1 month later, February of 2003, we were married. When we got married, I at least, and I feel like he was in agreement, we didn't really have this big world ideal. We just knew we're either going to move to his mom and dad's backyard or we're going to move to my mom and dad's backyard. We're not venturing very far from either. So we took to the table to go to Telephone, Texas, or Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I was born. And we gave it a good shot. He interviewed for a couple of jobs down there. You're not ready for my next sentence. There was a serial killer that was essentially on the loose in Baton Rouge, and it was like a nightmare. It was a horrific nightmare. And to tell the story that I made it to Texas because of a serial killer in Baton Rouge, I feel like does tell you a lot more of the way I was raised and the fear that I allowed to kind of make my decisions in my life when I was younger. Not that that one's unfounded, but one of his victims was a lady in one of our neighboring churches. And so you couldn't really, and she was even in antiques, and my parents they sold antiques. So you really could not say, oh, that would never happen to us. That's something that's happening somewhere else, because it was happening right among us, and it was happening to families that we knew. And it was just terrifying. You couldn't walk your dog. You couldn't go on a walk. You couldn't do anything alone as a female, for sure. I need to look up some crime podcasts. I have wanted to for a long time. That would have been in 2003 time period in Baton Rouge. And so we do need to find some of those podcasts. I was a lot younger, of course, and I'm pretty rusty with the details of what happened. And sometimes I'll kind of mix it with some other things that happened in the South. Jay and I tried to talk about it the other day, and he's like, I don't think that's that one. And I'm like, are you sure? So we do need to kind of freshen up on details and stuff. But either way, that led me to Texas. So we settled in a tiny, tiny, out in the middle of nowhere town in Telephone. And we had our 3 beautiful children, 2 girls and a boy. I feel, would move to the country and live in the country for a bit, and then kind of yearn for the city and not having to drive so far to work and different things like that. You know, at one time or another, both of us were driving over an hour to work. It was just silly. And so we would move to the city, and then we would not care for the city life. And so then we would move out to the country. And I feel like we did it at least twice on both ends over the 10, 12 years. When Cash was born, Lil she would have been 7 or 8. And when Cash was around 1 or 2 is when we started having our struggles, and essentially when I slipped into something that looked like someone coming undone, something probably along the lines of an identity crisis. I became somebody. I was in my early 30s, and I slipped into something undone. I was not living the way that I had always lived. I was not making decisions that aligned with my value sets. I didn't resemble myself anymore, almost just kind of checked out and became someone that was not really even present. And I want to say the identity crisis kind of came from, I really just always pictured myself as somebody that would grab this life by the horns and live this larger than life existence and get all the goody out of this life. That's always what I wanted. In my earlier years, I wanted to be Oprah. I wanted to have Oprah's jet. I wanted to be Oprah. I wanted to have all of that I saw. I don't know why. I wanted to be just gigantic and known and know everyone and be in the center of everything if I wanted to. And I found myself in this little tiny town in Texas, in my opinion, living this little tiny life. And I felt like my life was getting smaller every day. Essentially, I just started feeling like I was suffocating. And that's what I think triggered it and slipped me into something that would cost me my first marriage. I had a pastor at the time that was counseling us, and he said, Jess, life is like the game of chutes and ladders. And you hit some ladders and you hit some chutes, and you progress in those ladders, and the chutes will bring you back to here or way back, and then you can just work your way forward. He said, but for some reason, you have just hit ladder after ladder after ladder. And the first chute that you encountered, it just took you out. It took you out, and you couldn't recover from it. You didn't know how to recover from it. She didn't have practice recovering from it. And I believe that. I believe that I became somebody that didn't have the tools to recenter myself the way that I know now. Eventually, thank the Lord, and with everything else, nothing stays the same. And for me, that was wonderful news. This too shall pass. And out of the pit, He brought me. When I came out of there and when I got done walking through that season of my life, I had gotten a divorce, and I was under the understanding that when you walked through something like that, that's it. That's all. That is a game over. When you mess up that badly, that the only next option is death. And so I had decided either I would die in an accident, God would kill me somehow, in another type of accident. I know how ludicrous this sounds, but to me, it was the only next moment that was going to happen. Or I would do it myself. But either way, either of the three, that's what was going to happen. I just assumed and knew and was under the absolute realization when you mess up that badly that you just go directly to hell is what was in my heart and my mind and my soul from my raising. And I just kind of came out and just relinquished and surrendered, ready for that to happen. And when I thought death was coming, death never came. It never came, you guys. Well, obviously, I'm sitting here talking to you guys, but When I was 1,000% sure that the next moment or the next event was death, and death never came. And I thought, okay, I'm like checking myself for like bullet holes and like when I'm not dead, I'm not going to die. Well, now what? And I just thought, okay, then my next thought was like, okay, he's not going to kill me, but he's going to just sit me over in the corner and say, sit over there. Do not say a word. Be thankful that I am letting you live. I don't want to hear you speak. I don't want to hear you breathe. And I just thought he would allow me, and let me live some subpar, devoid of any joy or goodness type of life. And boy, did I not know our Father. And where I thought there was a potential after the divorce that I would lose my 3 babies, they were 9, 6, and 2.5 or 3. Where I thought that I essentially could lose my 3 kids, my God instead brought in 2 more. And when I thought that I would be alone and not get to love anyone for the rest of my life, remember that subpar life, my God, our God, brought in the most beautiful farmer with one of those really good hearts. Y'all know those really good hearts. He has one of those. And when I thought he was bringing death, he just brought so much extra life. And it's just one of those things that you have to witness, that you have to see, and you have to feel. That you think one thing is coming, destruction. And what comes instead is prosperity, that grace, and that mercy is something that will absolutely transform you from the inside out. And I will praise his name for the absolute rest of my life. I will do everything in my power to live the rest of my life, bringing glory and honor to his name for the way he spared me and blessed me. To think that you are getting next is coming condemnation. Wish I could just talk to you guys and not cry through it. To think that the next thing is coming condemnation, and instead comes a party for you with all of these wonderful things that he wants to give you as gifts. All of these things that he wants to give you to take care of. 2 of the most beautiful step babies you've ever seen in your whole life. They have enriched my life in ways that I can't even describe to you guys. And Jay and I together, we have the other podcast. And so if you ever want to get to know him, he's over there and he's just so lovely. And I know now that it took someone as strong and as stubborn as me to come in and help me, just like I help him, to chisel these things so painfully away from each other that we should not have been holding on to, whether they were from past generations but we set out to break some generational curses, and I feel like that is what we have done. And I watch these kids walk around this earth, and we have 5 of the coolest humans. I know they're in these little teenage years. I used to put them all over my socials, and then I felt like they were getting a little bothered by that. And so I've pulled back away from showing them to you so much. But I can testify to you that they are 5 of the coolest humans that I've ever been around. And, anytime I'm walking around this earth and I just feel like, what is this? Like there has to be more than this. And what really is going on here? And why are we here? And I'll lose myself and I can feel myself kind of floating. and I'll look at one of my kids and it just puts my feet right back on the ground. They tether me. They tether me to the truth, and they tether me to this is our life. We don't always need to question our life. We need to live our life. That is what my kids remind me every single day. Mom, we're not going to ask about this. We're going to go watch a show and get some snacks. And they are my favorite thing about my life. And they are the first thing I'm going to tell our God when we get there. I am amazed by him and enamored by him. And I think it speaks to me when I'm in relationship with you, when you give to me something that I don't feel like I earned from you. It speaks to me so much. And I try to always pay that forward because I feel like we're such a checks and balances generation. You brought me dinner, so I need to bring you dinner. And when I have these connections and these friends in my life that are constantly trying to pour into me, and I've gotten so busy and forgetful to even try to pour back into them, but they don't stop their pour. That speaks so loud to me because of the relationship that I've had with Christ, where everything that I've gotten from him, I should not have. That's one of my favorite things about him. So that's me. Now, what about you? How was your day? It is so nice to meet you. And I cannot wait until we're all friends. My dream moment is when we get to meet in some lovely little area of Dallas, in a lovely little auditorium or resort or something, and we get to eat and drink and hug necks and be together and stand face to face and meet each other in person. That is my dream for this community, and I want to draw close to you, and I am asking you guys to draw close to each other. And I just think that connection has the potential to not just save our day, but save our life. And I'm willing to try that with you. Thank you for being here again, and I love y'all. Bye.